So, we've reached episode 10 of Something Who, although it's actually about the 15th due to my bizarre numbering scheme. And to celebrate, we're reviewing this week's story, Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, and Season 15 opener, Horror of Fang Rock, two stories set in the Edwardian era that have an electrical theme. Meanwhile, a last mention for our listener survey, so thanks to everyone who's contributed so far. We'd love a few more responses, and it really won't take very long for you to fill in, so please just follow the link in the notes that came attached to this podcast when you downloaded it. And as we mentioned last time, there's a new way you can support us. If you visit the URL ratethispodcast.com/somethingwho, all one word, you can give us a very quick rating and that'll help other people find us. All the details again are in the notes. So, joining me tonight, we've got Giles.
Hello.
So Giles, you specifically asked if you could do the Tesla one.
Yes, yeah. Always been a big fan of Tesla for years, and I have to admit I've always thought, yeah, someday I would like to write the Doctor Who story that does Tesla. So, but I'm going to try not to bear the chip on my shoulder that someone beat me to it by cunningly becoming a professional TV screenwriter long before I did.
Yeah, that would probably do it.
Yeah, frankly, yeah.
And Simon.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. So look, like buses, we heard nothing from you for months, and then you've done 3 podcasts in a fortnight.
Woohoo.
Ooh. Yeah, I've really got into this new series, Richard, and I've suddenly felt all this negativity I'm seeing on the forums. I'm actually getting a burst of inspiration.
Excellent.
So it's not all doom and gloom, I don't think.
Oh, indeed. Well, good. It's great to have you along. And we're going to start off by talking about Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror. So, which of you wants to kick off with a first thought about it?
Well, the title doesn't exactly trip off the tongue, does it? I wonder where they came up with that one from. They've done an amusing run of puns, but that one's a bit of a tongue twister, isn't it?
Yes. It's a Harry Hill thing, isn't it? Nikola Tesla, Night of Terror. Got to have a system.
Yeah. Yeah, the two things are sort of balance each other, don't they? Nikola Tesla, Night of Terror. Yeah, it's sort of it doesn't rhyme, but it's sort of it's a rhythmic thing. Yeah.
I like it. It's wacky, but yeah, it's different. It's better than Attack of the Electro-Scorpions.
Yeah. Yeah, there is that. Giles, first thoughts?
Generally very positive. I thought that looked great. I sort of, don't want to do anything by way of a sideways review of the episode that I skipped over, but felt that was a dip in quality after what we had with Spyfall, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and it was nice to see things bounce back. I felt it was very well paced. I mean, it wasn't a revolutionary episode by sort of modern Who standards, but it was, to my mind, it did what it did very well, and reminded me rather of the RTD era historical figure of the week, kind of things, Shakespeare Code and things like that, and that's fine for me. I like that sort of flavour of Doctor Who. So
yeah. I mean, I also enjoyed this one. As you say, I thought it was a return to form, and what I liked particularly was the way that it gave the story a chance to breathe a bit at times. There were some nice scenes involving Tesla and first Yaz and then the Doctor, where they had a little bit of a chance to have a chat and explore the character and the relationships of those people a bit. It wasn't all action. Yeah, the previous one, it seemed like it had to be something happening all the time.
I thought I agree, Rich. I think the Tesla character and the Doctor sparked off each other. No pun intended. They sparked off each other really nicely. They had some fantastic scenes of dialogue together.
Yeah.
And for all her criticism in the previous series, I think Jodie Whittaker seems to be getting stronger and stronger each week. She really ran the show this week. The high points, I thought the scorpion creatures were excellent, generally threatening and creepy. And then when they took on a sort of humanoid form with those red glowing eyes and their sort of zombie faces, that was chilling as well. The Edison and Tesla characters were really well played. They didn't overdo the historical content too much. They sort of integrate nicely with the the mystery element and everything. It wasn't like a time out to give a history lecture or a moral. There wasn't too much moralising. Yes, Tester didn't get all the credit he deserved, and it was nice to learn a little bit about him. But he was fantastic in the story. It was almost like a companion. A few glaring weaknesses. Whilst the Scorpions were fantastic, I thought the Skifra Queen was pretty poorly done. I mean, you could see the gaps in the makeup around the eyes, and I think there was a gap in the mask on the neck. So you had those magnificent scorpions and all those special effects and a wonderful build-up, and then you had something that looked like a CBeebies pantomime character, unfortunately, leading the alien. So that was a letdown. And we keep saying week by week that Ryan and Yaz don't get enough to do. Well, I don't know what's up with Ryan this series, but he just seems to be devoid of any charm or pizzazz, really. He just seems to... He only gets a handful of lines each show, and he doesn't really have a range of emotions or anything, so I'm really disappointed with him. And the same with Yaz as well. Whilst there was wonderful chemistry between Jodie Whittaker, the Doctor, and Mr. Tesla, I didn't feel the same when Yaz was left alone with Tesla. I mean, she had a chance to steal scenes and so on. She was much better with Edison near the end, doing action and perhaps behaving like a policewoman, clearing the streets. Maybe that's the direction the writing and the script should take. But as for Ryan, I sadly, he might be a nice guy, and he starred in plenty of other shows, but I think they've just run out of ideas for him, and that's very disappointing, because otherwise the show seems to be on a bit of an upward curve.
Well, it's tricky with Ryan because they, very much the first series, they, for all that we've, and sadly, we've still not seen any great signs of Yaz being given a particular arc of her own yet. Although, I kind of felt, was there something implicit with her and being quite keen on Tesla? There was kind of a look she gave him towards the end, I think. But obviously, the previous series we did get Ryan's story as such. If there was a character arc in series 11, then it was really to do with Ryan and Graham at the expense of Yaz. And it does rather feel like now they've kind of done that as a resolution. They've not got anywhere particularly to go with them, and Graham and Bradley Walsh are both strong enough together and apart, to sort of hold their own, just as being a fairly run-of-the-mill companion, a standard companion. Whereas I think Tosin Cole struggles if they're not giving him the material, because Bradley Walsh can kind of make it, make his few lines and gags shine quite nicely. It's this perennial thing we keep coming around to. Of probably one too many people in the TARDIS.
Yeah, which oddly they then threw not only Tesla, but Tesla had a companion as well. So they ended up, and you had Edison as well along for the ride. So you ended up with 7 rather than 4. So they sort of compounded the problem.
Well, did it strike anyone else strange that you've got two such forward-thinking characters? Perhaps Tester's got more of a science background than Edison anyway, in that script anyway, but they were both exposed to an awful lot of technology, and yet they didn't have their minds wiped or anything at the end of the story.
There
were all sorts of things they saw there that could, getting a bit in depth here, but that they could have taken away, and they might have changed history. I mean, Tesla ended up in some people's eyes as a bit of a failure. Might he not have been inspired to go in a different direction and pursue his ideas with more vigour? I don't know, but I was surprised they didn't do the old mind wipe trick at the end to make them forget about what they've seen in the TARDIS and some of that Skifra technology that they'd plagiarised and pilfered from all over the place. I thought some of that must have rubbed off on Tesla and Edison.
So what's Doctor Who telling us? Is it saying that only women are clever enough to pick up on on what's going on, and so need to have their minds wiped, and men will just forget it all by tomorrow?
Well, I think with regard to Tesla, who probably did he see more of it? I'm trying to think how much more what Edison saw. I think with regard to Tesla, you could say there's an implicit thing that he was possibly going down that route anyway. I think the only thing they had the death rate gag, but one of the things about Tesla is that he supposedly left these plans when he died in 43 or whatever, and the US government, there was a big security scare at the time because Tesla had left plans for a death ray. And so I think, you could almost, given that he sort of spent the post-Wardenclyffe years coming up with increasingly loony schemes, I think you could almost say, well, maybe that's almost setting that up, that he, that you could say he was trying to replicate some of the things he'd seen. And they didn't they didn't sort of hang a lampshade on that idea. But yes, I do take your point, and it's a bit odd having had the very conspicuous mind wipe stuff in Spyfall, and given that is obviously a somewhat contentious thing in certain quarters anyway, for I guess understandable reasons. So it does send a slightly odd message that it's the women that get it, and Having said, just to finish my thought from earlier, I was going to say, despite the characters being, the companion characters being somewhat underserved, or Ryan especially, I did think structurally this was quite nice, that it felt like it did find stuff for the different groups, and it kind of, to be doing, and it kind of mixed up different sets of people and sent them off on different little quests. And so on, and so until you got to the sort of the finale, you didn't necessarily bring everyone together in one place, at least to my recollection. So I think it kind of it felt nicely paced from that point of view, and nicely structured. And we didn't have that thing of except when you really needed it, we didn't have that thing of everyone just following the Doctor around in a line and sharing out the questions.
Oh yes, that funny scene in the New Year's one last year when you had 7 people all standing in a line with the Dalek. Yeah, that was a bit weird, wasn't it? I thought Goran Visnich gave a very charismatic performance. He was very likable as Tesla, and also quite believable as a character.
Yes, and indeed Philip Glenister was great, and they're both very good. Yeah. And so was the actress playing Miss Scarrett as well. I thought she was pretty good as well. I didn't see any. Well, I suppose you'd have to say it's difficult because the Queen is obviously everyone is comparing her to the Empress of Ragnos. And Anjali Mohindra is clearly no mean actress herself. She's certainly, she's building up quite a mean CV post Sarah Jane Adventures, with various, and she's done a procedural, and she did Bodyguard. But I don't object to the somewhat over the top style of playing of that character, and I don't personally have a big beef with the. I don't know, it's tricky. I think character design wise, and one has to bear in mind the Runaway Bride is. Brace yourself, we're all going to cry, but 14 years ago now, and and my God, we're going to feel old on that. So it's not so much the revisiting of the ideas, but I think the fact it's sort of beat for beat the repetition of, like, you've got the swarms of insects, or arthropods rather, arachnids plus a queen played in a somewhat hammy way, and with somewhat similar costume design. Albeit the Empress of Ragnos was rather more impressive as a creation, I think, than Queen of the Skithra.
Yeah, I mean, I thought one of the problems with that was that it wasn't very clear from the screen what she was supposed to be looking like. I mean, you never really got a clear picture of what her form was supposed to be. You saw a lot of her face, then you saw a bit of her in mid-shot. Occasionally there was a funny sort of sting thing, but it wasn't quite sure what that was attached to.
And then you thought, does that sting belong to her? Yes.
Yeah.
And after what Simon said, I mean, I've only seen the episode once, and I confess I wasn't these kind of production issues skim past me watching it the first time. But I'd be interested to go back and look and just wonder whether they deliberately graded the shot to cover up some kind of faults in the makeup.
I was squinting at a little handheld because of logistics, so I didn't see it on a big screen to be able to spot that. So Simon, you just think you could very easily see flaws in it?
No, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. A big improvement on the last episode, which wasn't high, and it was almost up there with Spyfall. I thought the production values were excellent. There were plenty of thrills and excitement which were chronically lacking in the last series, but it's the familiar flaws of Ryan Yaz unfortunately being like spare parts, and then when you ask them to deliver lines, I don't know whether it's a lack of practice or just having the few things to do and say, they always sound a bit flat to me, and some of Yaz's dialogue with Tesla sounded really a bit clumsy, unfortunately. The Queen stood out because the Scorpion drones were superb. They were really, really good, and the zombie-like followers, they were good as well. So they're only minor things I've picked up, but I did feel a little bit let down by the way they did the Queen, and as Giles has testified, it didn't do much justice to a very good actress who played the Queen really, really well. I think she was just let down by the production values, but overall I thought the production values were really excellent. I actually watched it 3 times, Richard.
Oh, okay.
Which I don't often do with new Doctor Who.
No, well, you've got 3 times as much experience of it as me.
It got better with each watch as well. I didn't get bored with it either. So
it's definitely on my list for a rapid rewatch, and that sort of takes something, because I always feel like I've never really got the time to watch things once, let alone twice. I did wonder with the Queen. It felt like the editing choice, the stylistic thing of all those jump cuts in the middle of lines and so on and so forth. I thought again, is that, I know it can be a stylistic thing, but now I'm also wondering, okay, was that also an attempt to cover up some flaws in the actual creature design or execution?
Could be.
The writing seems to be a bit. You're used to people developing characters over time as they appear in a show, and it looked like they're messing about with Graham as well. He seems to become a sort of figure of fun and a fall guy in an awful lot of ways, whereas in the first series with the bereavement he suffered, he was very much an emotional rock for everybody else, and he was a mentor for Ryan. And now I don't know, one week they're trying to make Ryan a romantic lead, and then Graham and Ryan are they tried to make them a sort of comedy double act this week. It just seems very inconsistent, and really with them nearly halfway into their second series in their parts, they really should be hitting their mark. I don't know if it's I think it's. I don't know. I don't know if it's their fault. It just seems the writing's inconsistent.
I'm a sucker for, as you know, for a Yorkshire accent. So, I give Yaz probably more of a pass. And I felt like in this one she had a bit more to do, and she didn't irritate me in any way. Ryan probably irritates me because either he can't do a Yorkshire accent or he's not trying. I'm never quite sure where he's supposed to be coming from, because sometimes he just sounds like he comes from London or somewhere, and then occasionally it sounds like he's trying to do a northern accent. I find that a little bit frustrating as well.
I think they need 2 series is probably enough. I think they need to freshen up the crew, and I'd love them to have a historical figure on board again. They'll have to forgive me. I've forgotten the name of the characters in Spyfall.
Ada Lovelace and
Noah.
Yeah,
but they were terrific.
Yeah, coming back to one thing I particularly liked, I did like the fact we had the focus at the start of this. I thought it was nicely structured, the way it was focused at the start, and with Tesla and his companion, as it were, for the first 5 minutes or so, and then that we just plunged into the Doctor and Co being already in place and blending in, and it was nice to see the companions in period dress actually trying to blend in, whereas the Doctor doesn't. But then that's the Doctor in any incarnation, really. Happy enough to stick out like a sore thumb and assume they can blunder through on the grounds of get through on the grounds of authority, and just knowing twice as much as everyone else. But I did like that structure. But it does make me feel I miss the pre-credits teaser, because it was like a mini mini cliffhanger, and given that now we're in the age of stories being most stories being single episodes, I think the show loses something by not having that, because there's usually a moment, there's something that you can structure it around, and I just think that's that nice thing. And it's also a moment that absolutely, it can grab an audience in the...
Yes.
And it's interesting because I'm not going to get into ratings analysis, and I know the show's doing fine on its like catch up and so on. But it's, in terms of the overnights, clearly there's an audience that it's not hanging. It's inheriting an audience from Countryfile in theory that it's then losing a chunk of. Then again, we could have a whole debate about whether or not Countryfile is a great lead into Doctor Who compared to some Saturday Night Shiny Floor show. Even if it's just pointless or something like that.
Well, I mean, the issue I think probably being that there's not a lot of crossover. I think I'm a Countryfile and Doctor Who viewer, but I think there's probably relatively few of them. I think the demographics are rather different. So if you're going to try and build your audience, you're better off maybe coming from a program where you think you might get
and
similar
I think
sorts of viewers.
I just think that the having the teaser, the pre-credits teaser, is good. It's a good marketing point because it like audience building point because it gives people 2 minutes and there's a hook. They can watch the first 2 minutes and there's a hook, and if you don't grab them, then fair enough, and they can move over. But you're expecting people to sit through the credits before they find out what the story is about, and then by that time, so they've got to make a choice on whether they're committed. I think already, whereas there was always that thing about well, this looks interesting. Let's carry on and watch it.
Yes, and in fact, some of those sequences, I remember the one at the start of Time of Angels was about 5 minutes. So, I mean, you could very easily have chopped off the first bit of this one and turned it into that kind of pre-credits sequence, and it would have felt okay.
Yes,
particularly with a longish episode. It was over 50 minutes in length, so you got plenty afterwards.
But I did feel, talking about what we were saying earlier about the pacing, that it was nice, and having time for a few breathing moments, it was nice, and I felt this is that extra 5 minutes or so being properly put to use, and it felt like you're getting a bit more meat in it than you necessarily squeezed into a 45-minute episode, and yet last week was 45 minutes as I understand it, pretty much. And in that case, you think, why the hell didn't they take the extra 5 minutes to try and put a bit more meat on the bones of some of the characters there?
Well, I'm going to suggest two things. One is perhaps they just didn't have anything else. And the second one is I'm not sure that anyone could have taken another 5 minutes of it.
Yeah, well, yeah. Both good points.
Yeah, I mean, so both this story and the one we're going to come on to later, Horror of Fang Rock, are the story of the returning character actors. So we've already talked about Robert Glenister's return, and also Angela. Sorry, what's her name? Angie
Mahindra.
Yeah. So both of those characters, one in Sarah Jane and one in the main series, have done a turn before.
Turn as the Rani. Yes.
Yeah. I guess it's been around long enough now. Even the new series, that you can start to see people coming back in different parts, which was always such a feature of the original series.
Yeah.
I was a bit uncertain about some of the science and technology in this. So, for instance, Yaz suddenly seems to be an engineer for a bit when it suits. So she's left alone with Tesla, but she seems to be talking to him at a sort of fairly engineering-y level. I mean, I haven't got a specific example, but I just got the sense that she was talking quite technically with him at one point.
I gave Yaz credit for when she appeared with Edison on screen. That was great, but that was really clunky where they were left alone in the lab. And that sphere, she was suddenly reading all these things into it, glowing green, and that didn't seem natural things for Yaz to say, and it didn't make any sense really. I
mean, unless she's an engineer in the police force, I don't know. I mean, I guess you get all sorts of training, but it just gives a sense that they hadn't really thought about Yaz as a what her strengths are, what she actually knows. I mean, it felt like the Doctor would have felt more fitted more naturally into that scenario. And then also at some point, I want to say Graham, but I'm not sure it was certainly him. But someone starts saying, "Oh yes, Tesla, it's just like Wi-Fi," and I thought, no, hang on a minute, it's nothing like Wi-Fi. He's trying to send energy through the ether.
I think it's Ryan, but yeah,
to sort of power stuff. I mean, it's completely different.
Well, that was the one thing that I felt where they, I think they fudged. I was very impressed in general with how historically accurate so much of it was, and this is part of the. As I said, I've always thought, there's a good Doctor Who story with Tesla to be written, and it was, certainly picking up on some of the things that, this was clearly, tuning into some of the same things, believing, even the idea that he claimed to be receiving messages from Mars is historically accurate, and they definitely telescoped some of the current war and the rivalry with Edison stuff. I think for storytelling purposes, that would have been a bit earlier than Wardenclyffe and so on. But that was the one thing that did slightly grate with me. But I kind of felt, okay, there's maybe just for saying it to a modern audience. But what he wanted to do was so much more fantastical, really, than than Wi-Fi and wireless internet and this wireless power transmission stuff. But the story, it very consistently missold that point. I think they put it into the Doctor's mouth on a couple of occasions. They definitely, when they were talking about connecting up the world, they implied very much that it was all to do with data and information rather than...
It's more like wireless charging, I suppose, that we start to see now.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We did have a little moment at the start of the with the famous sort of standing there with a light bulb that's not connected to anything, glowing away, but one of his many party pieces.
Simon, any other thoughts before we move on to...
Just on that science vein, is that gadget of the Doctor's, is it still a sonic screwdriver, or is it just a sonic nowadays?
It's mainly spoons.
Spoons, that's it. That just grates a bit with each episode. The way Jodie uses it's like a stab all the time. When usually it's just being used to, it should just be used to scan things and open things and unlock things. That's a bit odd, and she does that funny gurning face as well whenever she does it as well. So that's a little quirk. Perhaps that'll become when we look back further on years down the line, that will be one of her traits, that gurn and the stab. But that seems to happen a lot.
Interesting. I hadn't really registered that, but now I shall look for it, and it'll probably irritate me every time I see it. I don't know.
I watched it 3 times, Giles, so I kept spotting. That's why I've earned my corn this week. I kept spotting things like that.
Well, if I do something, so I think the thing that I haven't really discussed yet that I liked was Edison. I mean, it wasn't a cartoon villain. I mean, he was certainly written as the anti-hero compared with Tesla as the hero, but not without compassion. He mourned for the people that were lost in the course of the episode, and he had his moments as well. He was a human character, and I quite liked that, and I thought well played by Robert Glenister.
Yes, yeah, that's something that obviously they did. It was nice that there was the thematic thing. They maybe didn't play on it quite as much as they could have, but the idea of Tesla as being the inventive genius versus the person who takes things and makes them a reality and a commodity, which was certainly to some extent Edison's forte, and the idea that he did have labs full of people working on things that were then marketed under the Edison name. And it's rather ironic that we've now got Elon Musk with pretty much having the same kind of thing, but and being a front man for a lot of very clever stuff, and ironically doing it in the name of Tesla rather than his own. And then obviously and then we had the Skithra, who were a galactic magnification of that same plundering tendency of not inventing things for yourself. But I don't think it wasn't that cruel to Edison, which I'm glad about, because I think it was it was a nicely nuanced thing instead of making him the pantomime villain.
Yeah,
it's interesting. I don't know if any of you have seen the current war which was out last year, which was interesting companion piece. I mean, we could go through Teslas on screen for ages, but the current war is Cumberbatch plays Edison,
right?
Also quite irascible, and Michael Shannon, yes, plays Westinghouse, who was the real sort of the guy who brought up a lot of the AC patents, and it's
right.
very good movie, and Nicholas Hoult in that younger actor plays Beast from the X-Men films, or the later X-Men films, plays Tesla in that, and that's a brilliant performance actually, because he's like a bit of a bit player. He sort of gets to come on and have a few turns in which he just steals the scene. And then of course we have going back to the Prestige, we've had David Bowie, of course, played Tesla in that. If you remember I'm guessing you may have seen that.
Yeah.
And if you haven't, see it, and I'll say no more. But it is an awesome movie.
It's very good.
Yeah, and Bowie is a fantastic Tesla. But yes, Goran Visnich belongs up there with them. I think very good portrayal.
It reminded me a little bit of the Vincent van Gogh episode, in the sense that the Doctor's saying to Tesla, it's not necessarily going to go all that well for you now, but your legacy's assured. Which is it's a hard message to give anybody. I'm not sure that either of them. What am I trying to say? I wonder about Doctor Who trying to show us somebody being reassured of their legacy, partway through their life. It doesn't seem very natural, but in a way, I suppose it's more for our sake, isn't it? Because we want them to feel better about life.
Yes,
even though in the end, perhaps they shouldn't.
Well, Vincent, I mean, they play it in two different ways. I mean, this is somewhat, although it emphasises that he will sort of die a failure. On the other hand, you can think, okay, well, but he has 30 more years to live at this point, and to some extent, he will, much as he was less recognised, as time went on, he was still, I guess he'd still seen some of the world a lot of the world that he created come to pass, even if he hadn't got the credit.
He's portrayed as sort of happy-go-lucky as well, so that he doesn't seem overly upset about the fact that he's not as rich and famous.
Yes, yeah. Whereas Vincent and the Doctor absolutely shamelessly just does something that can probably only be done once, and I love it personally. It makes me love every time I watch it, because I'm a big softie. But it's also got it's also hard as nails about it at the same time that this isn't going to make a difference. And I think that's something that's audacious and kind of comes from having someone that isn't wedded to the format of Doctor Who, just having a chance to play with the sandbox and say, well, why can't we? And so he does. Yeah, a bit like Neil Gaiman saying, well, why can't we make the TARDIS character, a person for an episode? It's a great concept, but can only really be done once. And just to come back to, I think the only other thing I was going to say was just to echo what I think Simon was saying at the start, which is we are seeing a nice new side to Jodie's character, to the Doctor's character. Here, I like her being, showing more steel. It's what felt like it needed to be there in Series 11, and to undercut. And it felt, I remember saying at the time, I kind of felt like, okay, we're getting a Doctor character that is based on the sort of wackier moments of Tennant, but without the underlying side, without the sort of the other side that undercuts it. And now it feels like we are getting that here. And I also like the fact that we didn't have any enormous monologues of the Doctor basically explaining things to herself and the audience in this episode.
Oh gosh, yes.
It felt like the dialogue, the dialogue was there, but it was a dialogue, not a monologue. So we found out. So yes, more from Nina Mativier, if that's her name, please. I think. Be interested to see what she does next.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think, as you say, it was a relief after a great start to the season, and then a dip last time. A relief to come back to form this time, and I guess optimism for the rest of the series after that. Okay, are we all done with Tesla?
Yep, that was again very enjoyable, I thought.
Yeah.
Here, Reuben, come and look, quick.
What is it, boy?
The light of the sun shining off a big yellow digger. Fellow wearing a wide-brimmed hat and leather jacket. Went over there into the sand, it did.
Nothing there now.
Not now, maybe. I told you it went behind the sand dunes.
It could have been a... what do they call 'em? Treasure seeker.
Went far off.
Reckon I know what you've seen. They always said the Beast of Joss would be back.
The Beast of Joss?
Aye.
Here comes Ben.
Quick, get that door closed. Did you see him, Ben?
Who?
The Beast of Joss.
Tah, there's no such person.
They say he haunts relay transmitting stations like this.
He might be after those film cans we buried on the beach.
Don't be daft.
The last time that beast was seen in Devon, 2 men were fired that very same night. Cleaned out a small film store. Broke their hearts, he did. Didn't just take their Doctor Who, but Basil Brush too, and a whole load of old comedies. Whole place burned down shortly after.
They ain't got nothing to transmit now but a test card and static.
That old tale again.
More'n a tale. Vince saw him tonight. Sun shining off his JCB, so he said.
Don't let him take our Marco Polo, Reuben. Please.
Don't worry, boy. Pass me that carpet. We'll hide the film cans underneath it. That'll keep him safe. He'll never look there.
The obvious way to make a connection is to point out that both this story and the one we're about to come on to end with an alien spaceship being zapped from the top of a tower.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because I mean, so coming on to the horror of Fang Rock, I mean the main reason that I picked it as a companion piece was because of the period setting. It seemed to be a match from that point of view, and there's the electricity theme as well. But it's funny that there's quite a lot of parallels in the end when I started looking at it, and I think, as you say, the denouement of each of them, they're actually using the technology of the time to defeat the aliens. In the one case, they use both the setting of the lighthouse and also the light of the lighthouse to defeat the Rutans. They're refracting from the lens, and then in this case, they're using Tesla's tower for the purpose it was created. So yeah, that was a nice parallel touch. And there are some other things as well that we might come on to later that I felt tied it together. In the theme of returning characters. So Kieran mentioned this a few weeks ago when we were talking about Enemy of the World on the Australian one, that Colin Douglas comes back in this. But
yes.
I'd sort of forgotten about that, and then I'm looking at it and I thought, is Colin Douglas off the Enemy of the World? Or somebody like him? It's not old Donald. What's his surname? Bruce. It's not Donald Bruce. It's Reuben, the lighthouse keeper. Nice character, nice turn actually in this. So I mean, I as I guess I said in the chat that we had, I don't think I've seen this since 1977. I mean, it's possible that it was repeated at some point in the 70s. I might have seen it on repeat at that point, but I genuinely don't think I've seen it in 40 odd years. I mean, I read the Target book.
Wow.
And I can't explain to you why I haven't seen it. It's not because, you know, I liked it when I saw it. I liked it when I read it, but I don't know. I just maybe felt like I didn't need to. But so I almost came upon it completely new this time. And sort of about halfway through episode 2, I thought, golly, how are they going to make this stretch to 4 episodes? I was sort of beginning to feel like we've yeah, we've had the introduction of the Rutan. We kind of know all the characters. Where's it going to go? But somehow there's an awful lot of space for the story to breathe. I mean, and not very much action, and yet good old Terence, he knew what he was doing. It absolutely fills the time that you've got, and it is compelling. So that stunned you into silence.
I heard rummaging from the other end. I thought someone was going to come in.
No, I loved it at the time of broadcast, Richard. I'm slightly sad watching it again because Horror Fang Rock and Image of the Fendal, that was sort of when my enjoyment of watching Doctor Who as it was broadcast week by week and season by season, that's when it really peaked for me. And it didn't get any better after that, so I'm slightly sad watching it again, but remembering that. But what a cracking story, and it's all I think it's all studio set as well. What an amazing job they did. You get totally, I mean, is it a Lighthouse Under Siege story?
Guess so.
It's I think it's fantastic. When that old Doctor Who's done really, really well, I think it's like watching a theatre production. You can see people are acting their socks off, but after a while you're drawn into the story, and you suspend all your disbelief. So you ignore the model ship crashing on the rocks and things like that, and the Rutan looking like a tennis ball with spaghetti dangling from it, because the actors are so good. They all spark off each other. You have wonderful byplay between Louise Jameson and the Doctor, which Ryan and Yaz should be forced to watch, because that's exactly how to do it. You've got to interact with the characters around you, the characters you meet when you step out the TARDIS, and of course the crew. And it's just wonderful to watch, and it's quite chilling and suspenseful as well. It's got a wonderful period drama setting as well. Another connection with Nikola Tesla's Night Terror. Leela is in period dress. And I don't know how to say it. I'd forgotten just how good Louise Jameson was in that role, and what a wonderful character Leela was as well. Because when you think it couldn't get any better than Harry and Sarah and the Doctor, that along came Leela, and she was great as well. So one of my favourite stories. It's one of those ones that gets overlooked because there were so many strong Baker stories, but I think it's fantastic. And it bears watching over and over again. I did make a bit of a schoolboy error. I watched the first 2 episodes of Fang Rock, and then I watched the Tesla story in the middle. So that's why I watched. That's my confession. That's why I watched Tesla 3 times, because it didn't bear comparison to Fang Rock until I'd watched it 2 or 3 times again, and then treated it on its merits and for what it was. Because it's not fair comparing Tom Baker and Jodie Whittaker, but you can't help doing it when one follows the other in your night times viewing. So it took another couple of watches just to give Jodie Whittaker the credit she deserves for getting stronger in the role. But my God, Tom Baker's fantastic, isn't he?
Oh, he's at the top of his game here, isn't he?
There's a couple of classic Bakerish moments. So there's a moment where he's saying something really important, so he whispers it for effect, and then shortly afterwards he's saying something that's terribly serious, so he's smiling while he's saying it. It's so counter the way that an ordinary human would do it, and yet it's very Fourth Doctor.
Someone asked him, I can't remember whether it was one of the shipwreck victims, asked him, are you the leader? And he says, no, but I'm the ideas man. And I thought that was brilliant as well.
Yeah.
But you could see Louise Jameson and Tom Baker, they give little grins to each other, and they mug and pull faces and things, and that's just loving their roles and having a great script from Terence Dicks to work with. And it's just, like I've said, I don't watch New Who on repeat viewing much, but those classics, the real classics, I can watch them over and over again. They really are timeless.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that in this story, that some of the villains are upper class people, sort of, and they're in sense of entitlement. I suppose in series 12 they'd be they'd be baby boomers or maybe sort of rich internet millionaires or something, or billionaires. But I suppose in the same way that Lenny Henry's character was. But yeah, because we're in 1970s. Because it's written in the 70s and it's set in the early 1900s, then it's rich people and sort of expecting the world to revolve around them.
Well, we're not doing which is best thing anyway, but this is about the best of the best. I think this is Terence's strongest script probably, and I think it's beautifully put together, and it's just interesting because one thing I kind of noticed, it's very clever. The structurally, I know what you were saying, Richard, but it's just like episode 1, the lighthouse, something in the something on the rocks. Episode 2, we then introduce the other characters, so then that's something fresh there, and we get a glimpse of it. I think that's our first glimpse of the Rutan itself. Body snatch. We don't get we don't know that it can body snatch. We have the stuff to do with the idea that it's done a post-mortem on poor old Ben in episode 2, but we don't know why until episode 3. And then the Doctor realises his mistake, that they've been locked in with the thing. Is a gorgeous, it's a brilliant way of going into episode 4.
Yes.
So, and I think it's just masterfully put together. So there's always something new that we're coming to whilst in this very isolated setting. And the one thing that I kind of thought it plays to the BBC's strengths of the time, and I think what's hard for our younger viewers to appreciate. I mean, we're all old and folkish enough to remember it. But this is the fact that Doctor Who was being done on 3-camera. 3-camera video in studio bound. This was just how television was done at the time. Filmed series and filmic look was just it was not part of. By the 80s, the fact that Doctor Who was still being made that way was enough to single it out as being something other, and something that probably belonged more in the realm of kids' TV and light entertainment shows. At this time, this was just how television was made. And if you watch Talking Pictures on with any of their repeated prestige dramas that they're doing various things on about 10 o'clock in the evening, you can turn on, watch Special Branch or Mystery and Imagination and things like that. They're all made in the same basic way of doing it. And I think that sort of breaks down a wall, because the thing that struck me was, I thought, okay, the characters from the yacht, there's absolutely no concessions to this being a children's show whatsoever. No. Their concerns are absolutely concerns of the adult world, really, and it's more like they wandered in out of they're supporting characters from a Sherlock Holmes short story, or Upstairs Downstairs or something like that. And all the better for it. You wouldn't know until you wouldn't know until you get the glowing tennis ball on a string. That you're really watching sci-fi.
Well, Terence Dicks wouldn't want to patronise his audience, would he?
No.
He wouldn't want to talk down to children. He'd want them to be stretched up to whatever the parents would want to watch.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that really does a good job of that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the odd thing, talking about video versus film, is that I always felt that video was the higher quality, technically, and it always had a more immediate feel about it. I mean, film to me always seems to give a certain sense of distance from the action, so it seems slightly odd. I know people like the sort of slightly more atmospheric and sort of prettier nature of film, but the fact that it distances you from the action to some extent always made it feel a bit strange, perhaps, that it's become so prevalent.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, that's just being folky-ish. It's not like it was, eh?
And again, of course, this is directed by Paddy Russell, who obviously knew exactly what she was doing, and it's brilliant. And I've got a note on, I love all the stuff on the rocks. There's brilliant I said brilliant fog work, if we can call it that.
Yeah.
That stuff, you don't really feel that you're, you very rapidly forget that you're in the studio, and considering we're just switching between these few sets set up in Pebble Mill.
Oh, it's brilliant. Even outside of the lighthouse, clambering around the rocks, you get a feeling of claustrophobia, don't you?
Yeah.
So I noticed in the end credits for episode 1, you've got Grimwade and JNT side by side.
I know. Yeah, I spotted that. Funnily enough, yes.
Yeah.
There you go. And of course, this is in the Holmes Williams crossover period as well, which I think lasts up to Fendal, doesn't it? So I think yeah. I think Fendal was his last one, and then he wrote the Sunmaker, so he couldn't very well script edit that. Which is a nice, it's an interesting period, and certainly some of my, despite the fact this is, he's talking 77 here?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So, it's almost my birthday. And it's one of my, I wouldn't say my earliest 2 memories, but it's very definitely one that stayed with me, the stuff, particularly from episode 4 with the Doctor talking to the Rutan as it's crawling up the stairs. That one, it's definitely one of those fairly early Doctor Who images that stuck in my head for ages.
Yeah, I mean, the Rutan coming up the stairs, I mean, in my memory, I'm thinking, that was a pretty pathetic effect. But actually, watching it now, I mean, it's the 70s, it's a big green ball, but it's not actually all that bad. I mean, it is what it is. But
it's perfectly good, Richard. I was
that's
just
right.
being picky. That's all.
Yeah, it didn't take me out of it at all.
No.
Whereas in my mind's eye, I think perhaps somebody has sort of gone on about it as being not very good, and it's lodged in the back of my mind because I haven't seen it in 40 years. I've believed it, and then when I've gone back and seen it, I thought, that's ridiculous. Actually, that's perfectly decent.
No, it's by no means. It's not like The Rat, really.
No,
no. It's just I think personally, I feel I'm surprised this hasn't had special edition treatment yet, because it just feels like the only thing it really needs to to amp it up is if one is of a mindset where one is bothered by these things, which I'm not necessarily. I'm happy to usually take these things as they come. I don't try and see past the effects or just appreciate them for what they were at the time. But you'd think, okay, the only thing that really needs to lift it in that way is a redo of the effects of it climbing in the outside of the lighthouse, so it actually looks like it's attached and not being winched up on a fine piece of thread, and that's sort of standalone stuff without any actors or any complications. So I'm surprised it hasn't been nailed for that.
Sorry, Charles. I wonder if John Carpenter ever watched it, because in places it reminded me of watching John Carpenter's The Thing. There's the shape, the Rutan shape, and the way it possessed people and attacked people and things like that. Just a few parallels, like the Ark in Space and Alien. Suddenly you can see parallels between those two.
Well, you've definitely. I don't know whether that was filmed. And you've always got the crossover between the British film industry of the 70s and that they were filming. Potentially working with other people who'd seen this stuff. If they hadn't, I'm not sure where the thing was filmed, but certainly if you're talking about Alien and so on. I'm sure Ridley Scott kept an eye on Doctor Who at the time.
I always like the special effects as they are. I mean, it's part of the show of looking back and watching it and remembering how I love watching old TV and classic Doctor Who, and it still reminds me of the thrill I had as a kid first seeing a lot of these.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's nice that the whole way that the characters and their actions is just very well constructed in terms of the characters and their actions being true to their sort of motivations that we've had set up. That it's nice that Palmerdale finally meets his fate as he's creeping around the outside of the way it's just set up, so he goes creeping around the outside outside of the lighthouse trying to find out what's going on, and so it's all he's brought to his fate by greed, and it's lovely that it's it's really sad that Vince, it's just like, oh, couldn't Vince have survived?
Yes,
but it's nice that it's nice that he takes the time that he burns the money, and that's more money than Guy's ever seen in his life.
Yes,
and that he actually, it's nice that he takes the time that he burns the money, so he has that little moment of redemption before he meets his maker at the hands of Reuben.
Yeah, so I mean, I made a note. I said, that's it. That's the end for Palmerdale, but serves him right for trying to corrupt good old Vince.
Yeah. Another lovely moment, which just made me hoot with laughter. It's just the moment when they say, "Oh, Palmerdale's dead," and Adelaide starts screaming. It's just like It's like half a second before Leela slaps her. She doesn't even let her get out a full slap. It's just whack. It's like she's been itching to do it for him.
Yeah.
No, she could have got could have been worse. She could have got the Janus Thorn treatment.
Yes. But it's just the timing. It's just finally I can slap her. And
yeah. Poor old Leela, because there's one other female character in this other than Leela, and she's such an appalling character that there's mind you, not that Leela's that bothered, but there's no opportunity really for them to have a woman to woman chat.
True, it pretty fails I'm not sure whether it fails the Bechdel test. On the grounds of if they have a conversation, it's pretty about. Oh no, they do actually. If everyone's bothered by the Bechdel test, they do have a conversation about astrology, don't they? And Leela has that rather lovely, it's just better to believe in science line. Having just, from what she's learnt from the Doctor, which is actually a nice little thing. I think it's lovely the way that Skinsale is a great character, the Colonel.
Yeah.
And it's yes, Alan Rowe, I was intrigued to find out, was Geoffrey Bayldon's long-term partner. Apparently.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. The things you find out on Wikipedia, but great actor, and really, he's got that whole Sherlockian vibe. That he's exactly the kind of person you expect to turn up in something like that. And it's lovely that the B plot, the whole thing with Skinsale and Palmerdale trying to contact the mainland, and that persuades Skinsale to sabotage the telegraph. Which I think that was the only thing that slightly I thought, oh, okay, very slight little thing you might have handled differently.
Yes,
it was just the fact that Skinsale sabotages the telegraph, and when the Doctor discovers this, he says we're on our own now, and you just think, well, and you haven't been for the last 2.5 episodes, but so because we haven't really had a hope of rescue dangled as such, or any hint that there has been communication with the mainland, even along the official channels. But and the telegraph is another sort of totem of technology. Yeah, because Reuben treats the telegraph with equal suspicion to electric light. There's a bit where he says, "Oh no, we'll semaphore in the morning," and thereby dooms a lot of them.
Yeah, it's a bit careless of the Doctor to throw away those diamonds. I mean, if only because he nearly drops the one that he's picked later on. So why not just take a half a dozen along with you, just to make sure you've always got one?
I suppose he needed the biggest, having rejected Skinsale's cufflinks.
And then poor old Skinsdale just decides that he has to have the diamonds, and that's it for him.
Yeah, it's great. And I love Reuben's smile at the end of episode 3 is brilliant, isn't it? Just it's a great character breaking moment. And of course, what's his name again? Colin Douglas had been in between Enemy of the World and Horror of Fang Rock. He had become a massive star, probably for a lot of the people who've been watching this, because he was in A Family at War, which was in the early 70s, and used to outrate Coronation Street on occasion. So it was, and that was when it took some doing to outrate Coronation Street.
Yeah, indeed.
So he was certainly a very familiar face, I think, to audiences at that time.
Only 3 TV channels then, kids.
Yeah, frankly.
Any other thoughts, Simon, about horror or Fang Rock?
No, you God, this sound like an old curmudgeon now. You just hope that the present gang producing and starring Got to, it'd be nice if they dip back into stories like Horror Fang Rock and see what they could be doing with their awesome budgets, because whilst the production values were supremely high by and large in the test of the story, just look at all the discussion we've had about the characters in the Horror Fang Rock. They were so rich, and the dialogue was so good. Alas, Terence Dix isn't with us anymore, and had long not been involved with the show. But for goodness sake, folks, it's not hard to do. And look at the budgets and the technology they have at their disposal nowadays.
Yeah, well, and it is. I don't know. Oh, what can you say? Maybe it's to some extent. Yeah, it's so it's easy for us to sit on the outside and say it's not hard to do. But if you think I was just thinking, what's the nearest comparison in the new series? And probably Midnight is actually the nearest, and that is RTD doing that absolute bottle psychological horror thing, where all those characters get to have a great we get to know those characters, and that does show it can be done over 45 minutes, and maybe that's what they're aiming for, even putting everyone onto that buggy in last week's in Orphan 55, but
the
that kind of claustrophobic thing.
The problem with that is that there was no logic to it. Whereas in this story there is.
Yes.
I think there's a 50-minute cut in this. I think I wouldn't want to throw away 40 minutes of the story, but I think you could do, and you'd get a perfectly decent story out of it. So I think the 50-minute format is long enough to tell a story like this, and to be able to build up the tension in it. So I don't think it precludes this kind of storytelling.
No,
albeit that you lose some of the suspense.
You've got Ghost Stories for Christmas and things like Inside Number 9 are doing it in a half-hour format these days. Really, you can do it. It's just a matter of intent, isn't it?
Yeah, simplicity is often harder to do well than elaborate.
And then just to finish running through the plot, of course, episode 4 is where it all turns sci-fi, having been straightforward gothic, straight on gothic horror for three episodes. We get the sci-fi, and whose idea was it? Do we know whose idea it was to use the Rutan? Is that Terence? Did Bob Holmes suggest it to Terence? Is that
sure.
Is that anything to do with the whole Terence Seddix thing on the wasn't there some good-natured argy-bargy between them over the Sontarans and things? I'm just wondering, because it's a nice thing to just invoke this race that we've heard of before, and it works as a nice little shorthand. Well, it's a gift for long-term fans, but of course, back in '77, people hadn't seen Sontarans for 2 years. For 2 years, they didn't have repeats or DVDs, and I don't know even whether that had been novelised then. So God knows whether people actually would have remembered the Rutans as being the enemies of the Sontarans. I guess the Sontarans themselves would have had a bit of recognition as a name check when it starts talking about them. But
yes, I can't remember if I remembered that at the time. I think I probably did, but it would probably also have been drawn to my attention by Terence in one of his monster books, or his in the novelisation
itself, we had the
or
monster
something.
book
Yes.
by then, or the making of Doctor Who, possibly. So it would have encapsulated some of that stuff for the hardcore fans of the time. One other thing I had on my notes, I love Leela's bloodthirsty speech of triumph towards the dying Rutan. It's just like it's just great, and you just think, you wouldn't get any companion doing that these days, would you? She's just such a as a character, she's such a brilliant idea for a character. Luckily executed pretty much flawlessly throughout her run. I can't think of many places where until they marry her off at the end. I can't think of many places where they drop the ball with who she is and where she's from.
No.
And I get the impression Louise and probably Tom, much as they had their moments, were probably there to were probably quite forthright in putting the writers back on the right track if they felt anything was going off the rails.
Yeah, I mean, there's a moment where solid oak won't get between her and where she wants to go. With the old, she picks up the axe and starts whacking. I mean, it doesn't look, in fairness, all that solid. That she's chopping through it, but nonetheless, it's a nice character moment.
And sorry, I just wanted to have a shout out for that because it's lovely.
Yeah. So going back to the parallels then. So we've got the setting early in the 20th century. We've got electricity and the fact that electricity is a sort of part of the alien that menace as well. So the Rutan uses it seems to kind of absorb the electricity, but it also produces some of its own to kill the characters. You've got, as we pointed out earlier, you've got the towers and the fact that they use the technology, so the reflector in the lighthouse and also Tesla. You've got just one main female character. You've got an alien ship shot out of the sky in both of them as a sort of denouement. You've got men trying to make fortunes. So money is the motivator of Palmerdale and also of Edison. And then you've perhaps slightly more tenuously, you've got the shut inside with the alien menace at night in the factory at the start and also in the lighthouse.
I think that's more of a trope than a thematic thing necessarily. It's hard to, and Fang Rock doesn't in terms of having a theme. It doesn't really pursue a massive theme. I think the Tesla has its idea. If it's got a big idea, then it's to do with this thing. It's to do with highlighting the difference between invention and commodification, I guess. Although it doesn't greatly bang on about it. Whereas Fang Rock, I think if it does have anything, it's the electricity. It's kind of used as a totem for Gothic purposes. That it's there to so that Ruben can be all creepy and talk about and just talk about not holding with modern ways. And so on, and then, but we've got a bit of a theme of that certainly the rich people who come ashore, the lighthouse men appear to be good, honest folk, so much as Ruben might be a stick in the mud, but they appear to be salt of the earth types, don't they?
Yes.
As indeed is Harker.
Yes.
From the wrecked yacht. I think his name's Harker, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Presumably, possibly a Bram Stoker nod there, I guess. Whereas the rich ones are all vary from completely awful to morally questionable. But it doesn't quite go the whole hog and have it be specifically them that bring ruin on the entire enterprise. I guess, which you might do if you were really going to knock that one over the head, because it's not as if rescue is coming until Skin Sail sabotages the telegraph.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if Horror Fan Rock has got a theme, it's that we've got to get a show out with the big idea about the vampires as being kicked into touch by the
of course, yes.
Yeah, so this is Terence's second effort.
Yeah.
He's got 3 sets, maybe slightly more than that. He's got 3 or 4 weeks to write it, and somehow, with all of with everything going wrong and crashing around his ears, he comes up with a masterpiece.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's Terence Dicks all over, isn't it? I mean, he's never happier than when he's got a disaster on his hands. The War Games, the 5 Doctors. This it just seems like it requires a disaster to get his digestive juices flowing properly.
Well, considering that Midnight, if I recall
Yes.
correctly, was also a very last-minute rushed replacement script when something was deemed unsuitable or fell through.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether he thought, well, Terence did, yeah. Well, I wonder what Uncle Terence did in 1977 when he was in a similar situation. Oh yes, bottle episode with, well-developed characters being killed off one by one. That's right up my street.
I think we've reached more or less a natural close there.
I think you've summed things up wonderfully well, the pair of you at the end there. That was very good.
Yeah, nothing to add?
Okay, so that is our episode looking at Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror and also Horror of Fang Rock. I hope you've enjoyed that. Certainly, we enjoyed watching them. A pair of stories that we enjoyed both watching and talking about. So, Simon, thanks for coming back again so rapidly. Lovely to speak to you again.
Yep, thanks for inviting me. Fantastic choice of a classic Who story, which I adored watching all over again. And it just segued so naturally into Tesla as well. So, fantastic choice there. And thanks everyone for listening, and look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Sure. And Giles, thanks for coming along and getting a chance to talk about Tesla and also about this classic story.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure. It was nice to be able to be pretty unremittingly positive about things. To be honest, it felt like and yeah, look forward to being back soon, hopefully.
Yes, it was delightful for me to be able to get a chance to watch the Horror of Fang Rock after 42 and a bit years. So yeah, I mean, must watch it again slightly sooner than that. I mean, if I leave it for another 42 and a half years, there's definitely the question that I may not be around. So yeah, no, it was really great. Funnily enough, actually, I didn't mention it in the main body of the episode, but I was struggling to find my DVD of Horror of Fang Rock. So, I mean, why did I have a DVD of Horror of Fang Rock? I've never watched it. That's a good question. But anyway, I was struggling to find it, and so I watched BritBox instead.
Yeah.
Very good, I thought, actually. I mean, I first tried to watch it in the browser. That was less successful. But when I used the application, it worked really well. So that... I mean, people are saying that they doubt that there's room in the market for a service like that. But certainly, if you want to watch classic Doctor Who, you haven't got a room full of DVDs, or if you've mislaid the particular one you want to watch, it certainly works very well. It's quite convenient, and so as a one-off, it's a relatively low price. I mean, obviously, it's going to mount up if you keep subscribing month after month. But,
yeah. Duly noted. Yeah, strangely enough, I went to I've got all my DVDs are out of their cases and in little thin folders.
Right.
With the and I sort of reached vaguely into the area and it was and pulled it out first go. So
a man in tune with his DVD collection.
and it'll never happen again.
Yeah. Well, I dare say it'll be on Blu-ray before too much longer, and then that'll be easier for me to find. Great. Okay. Well, thanks again for the pair of you, and we'll do all this again sometime soon with another new episode and another classic.
Yeah. I'm off to listen to Tesla Girls by OMD.
Yeah.
Very good.
I'm off to listen to Wizard, which is the biography of Tesla, which I was inspired to download on Audible. So.
Yeah. And I'm off to do 10 hours of editing of this.
Get in.
Oh.
No, I'm sure it won't be as long as that.
I feel the same when I see Leela.
Yes. Maybe not. For now. Yes. Maybe not in the itchy jumper, though.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, well, I'll make my characteristically hapless attempt to close things off, and then we'll say goodbye, and that'll do it, I suppose.